in this wonderful review, which he had called A Clump of Plinths. Because there could be no less commercial name than that. But he was fantastic. He was so funny. I've never seen anybody that funny.
You speak for most people you know. I wasn't picked out in that show. I never was.
No.
Bill Oddie and Tim were picked up by everyone, the audiences and the stars. And the two people who thought I was funny were Chapman and you.
That's a very good reason. So anyway, that was then picked up and taken by, I think, Michael White. Took it into the Arts Theatre in London, and then to the Lyric.
Yes.
And I think it ran for quite a long time. And
5 months.
Cambridge Circus.
5 months.
Which is a much better title.
Yeah.
But New Zealand was before that or after?
No, it was after. Because we all went off and did jobs, because the BBC had done it often as jobs. And then suddenly Michael White called us to his office and said, I want you to go off on tour.
Right.
And we said, what, around the UK? And he said, no, New Zealand.
Well, we know Michael. Actually, can I ask, we're talking about Michael White, because a friend of ours in the audience, which is Tim Curry, who's here today. In a wheelchair. I'm serious, that's not funny. He's been had a stroke and he's been in it for about a year and a half or so, but he's doing wonderfully well. He's very funny. He actually did, I showed him the old one-man question and answer thing, which was hilarious. But John told me, I said, did you know Tim Curry? And John said,
well, the last time I saw Tim, he kissed me passionately. We were doing Will and Grace together. And the writers had indicated that he and I were paired off right at the end of the last program of the last series. And the last thing I remember is the camera on us, and he kissed me, and it was very pleasant. Very I'm not sure I want to do it again, but it was
what did Voltaire say?
What?
Once a philosopher, twice a pervert. Correct to quote that anymore, but it is actually Voltaire, so I think we get away with it. Well,
you can't say retard.
That's television.
Yeah. It's very common these days to know what you can say, because we could say a great deal in our day, couldn't we? People didn't get quite so upset about things.
Well, I thought, but that's because Beyond the Fringe said so many upsetting things, as we were both influenced by reading his book too. But Beyond the Fringe had an enormous effect on me, and I saw that on YouTube.
The theatre show that came to Cambridge in 1962, the most brilliant show I ever saw, the funniest show I ever saw. Peter Cook, Dudley Moore, Jonathan Miller, and Alan Bennett, now one of our very best playwrights. And it was extraordinary, because up to that time England was such a deferential society. People did not impersonate the Prime Minister because it would be disrespectful. I'm not kidding. When these guys came up, they made fun of everything. Alan Bennett did a Church of England sermon. I've never heard laughter like it, because it was the laughter of liberation. We'd heard these Clothian, flat-brained sermons. Somebody was saying it's not good enough, you know, and it was a wonderful show. And then 4 months later, there was a satire show on national television, David Frost. That was the week that he started coming to America and doing the show here. And England's culture, I claim, changed in about 6 months, from being very stuffy to being the sort of naughty 60s.
And at the same time, the Beatles came through and changed everybody, how everybody dressed, and they had to Cambridge. When I was at the Beatles came from Cambridge. You were wearing, yes, they came and played the cinema, you know. You were wearing leather patches on tweed jackets and usually dressed, and suddenly you're in little jackets like this, you know. Leather jackets, and who's your favourite Beatle? It really changed. Changed
the whole society, whereas the people who used to get interviewed were sort of generals and admirals and senior civil servants, suddenly actors were being asked their opinion. And it was an extraordinary change.
And the interesting thing to me is that there was this satire boom, which we were sort of vaguely, not I was going to college, but we weren't really involved. That when we became our time to do our show, we'd been doing lots of other shows, we couldn't use satire because it would just all be done. So our
People
show,
were tired of it.
yeah, people were tired of satire. So our show is sort of timeless. It's about characteristics of people. And what's good news about that is it goes on replay. Whereas if you look at early Saturday Night Lives, and then Chevy's doing Gerald Ford, and you go, oh yeah, you have to remember the context in which the jokes are being made.
That's right.
Whereas for Python, we never had to bother with that. So we got kind of lucky on that.
We were very lucky because it was a kind of coincidence. I mean, we were reacting against what people had just got fed up with, which was 4 years of nothing but satire.
And that, and 6 months in to being in colour, we were that close to being in black and white. So that is also an enormous difference. It makes a lot of, you see comedy in black and white, it's already old, so it has to be colorized.
But to talk about comedy in black and white, because what's interesting is Eric and I have written together for Frosty, right? And you did some solos for Ronnie Barkham.
A little bit later on the other shows, yes.
Yeah. And then they went, what happened? Oh yeah, when I finished that, Frosty asked me if I wanted to do my own show, and I said I didn't, but I would like to do a show with Tim Taylor. And we both agreed immediately that we wanted Graham.
Right.
And then David said, is there anybody else you want? And I said, well, we want Marty Feldman. And David was shocked because Marty was a writer. He'd been the head writer on the Frost Report. And I said, trust me, he's going to be very funny as a performer. And the four of us came together and did at last the 1948 show. And I've just been looking at these old black and white comedy tapes. And this guy is all over the place. I've forgotten how many little parts he was playing.
Well, they were very kind. He used to give me little parts of them.
Well, he was funny.
Hand for holding the gun or which was great for me because I had no fear. If you're playing the body in a sketch, you can't forget your lines.
Well, I forgot how many shows you're in. I think we should read a sketch or two because the 1948 show. Of these shows, and then the Frost organisation completely wiped. And it's unbelievable. Shows with Chapman, with Brooke Taylor, myself, and Marty Feldman, and Eric, wiped. And they've now begun to discover some of them, but I've got some of the old sketches, 295. There's a sketch here which I think is as good as anything in Python. Oh. You come in 295?
Which one are we doing?
That one.
Okay.
Alright. You come into my office because you want to take a course on how to improve your memory. Okay. Come in. Ah, good morning. Come in. Thank you. Do sit down. Now, what can I do for you?
Well, I'm interested in your memory training program.
Well, a lot of people feel that they like to improve their memories. The wonderful thing is, improving them, it's not as hard as as hard as nails.
I beg your pardon?
As hard as nails. It's word association, you see. It's the basis of my system. You remember things by associating with associating with people like that.
People like what?
People like to improve their memory. Now, what can I do for you?
course, with my asking why. So association of ideas, you see, it's the basis of everything we do to acquire a better memory, but it's not as hard as, no, hard as nails. Remember, never mind, you'll soon pick it up. Now, take an object like this.
A saucer.
Good, well done. Now, what does it make you think of?
Well,
What would you like to think of?
like to think of.
A new woman.
A new woman.
Well done. What is the new woman doing?
Drinking tea.
Good. And what's she drinking tea out of?
A cup.
Quite right, a cup and saucer. Okay.
I'm not sure.
So what do you mean association ideas? That is the basis of our method. Indeed, the whole in the wall. What do I see through the hole in the wall? A new woman. Every time. It's such a strong image. You associate that with anything you want to remember. Anything. Numbers, dates, names, anything. Try again.
Battle of Trafalgar.
Up, Trafalgar, square, hole in the wall. What do I see?
A new woman.
Excellent. Excellent. Who is this new woman?
Oh, I don't know.
The Empress Josephine. 1815, Josephine.
1815 was Waterloo. Trafalgar was 1805.
Yes, wait a minute, I'm finished. Josephine's wearing boots, Wellington boots. You can't see the toes, so deduct the 10 that you can't see. 1815, 1805.
All right, the date of Waterloo.
1815.
Yes, how do you do it?
Oh, wait a minute, let me think. Waterloo Station, train to Brighton, pier to There's the Empress Josephine in 1815.
But she's got Wellington boots on.
No, back from Waterloo. Duke of Wellington, in he comes, wants his boots back. So, he sees her toes, no need to deduct 10, Waterloo 1815.
Fire of London.
What?
The date of the fire of London.
Oh, everything. Date of the fire of London, fiery, diary. Samuel Pepys, yes. Samuel Pepys wrote in a diary about the fire of London. Samuel Pepys. Through the hole.
A new woman.
No, 3 new. By the light of the fire, he sees 3 stunning, gorgeous new women. 1666.
That was from something else which we were recovering. We were recovering some of the material. That's some of it.
We've done because we did before Yorkshire, right here
Yes.
too. And that was based on a sketch that we started. We did the 48 show, and then we started doing it on our stage show.
Yes, it's a really great sketch. I mean, you must know it. You were lucky, you know. Who would have thought 40 years ago we'd all be sitting here drinking, you know. It's the memory where the Yorkshiremen just get more and more over the top.
Well, they exaggerate the hardships, right?
And we still did it at O2.
We did it at O2.
We opened with it, just for a change. We used to close with it, and we said, who would have thought 40 years ago we'd all be sitting here doing Monty Python?
Terry Jones did something that threw us all. He was doing the Spanish Loonies thing to start the guitar. And when he took the guitar off, in a big hurry to put the white tuxedo on to come and do the Four Yorkshire, he cut his eye. And we sat down, and you and Michael did the first few lines, and then it was Terry's turn, and I turned to Terry for his line, and blood is So I blow my line. I don't know what is he hurt or what. And the next thing is he can feel something, so he does this with his hand. Now he is red-handed. And a very strange thing happened, because when I blew my lines again, and when I came off stage, Eddie Izzard was there, and I said, sorry about blowing the line. And Eddie said something profoundly wise to me. He said, John, he said, they've all seen you do the sketches correctly many times, and it's much more fun, right? When something new happens that's never happened. From that moment on, I spent most of my time trying to break him up. Breaking up my career.
Which you actually succeeded in me. I know you did. Because we used to do a sketch called Anna Elk.
The next thing that I say will be my theory. This is my theory by Anna Elk. I can't remember it.
No, but that's the basic role of the interview is it, yes, and your theory is...
Some nights I just went on and on coughing for such a long time until I broke him up. And Michael and I had fun on at the end of the parrot sketch. When Michael went off to see if he could get a live parrot, they used to sit in dressing rooms, thinking, oh God, what are they going to get to the end of it? And one night, the last night of all, when there were millions of people watching all around the world, and I said, when Michael went off, I said, oh, I heard on the radio this morning that the editor of the Daily Mail, which I hate, Mr. Paul Dacre, has had an arsehole transplant. Michael came back on and said, I've just been listening to the television, apparently the arsehole was rejected.
Which is an excellent form of revenge. It's on the DVD available in the lobby, so you can get the Paul David joke. Is he still alive?
Oh yes, he's still alive. He's quite crazy now. No one is now allowed to write about an editor of the major British newspaper being crazy because they censor it. This is a new concept, which is censorship, fresh censorship in the sense of censorship of the press by the press. So that they criticize everyone else. They criticize politicians and businessmen and the church and doctors and sportsmen and actors and everyone. But they never actually get criticized themselves, and I think that's why they get so power mad. Anyway.
Well, certainly true. I just finished reading Happy Tank, and I know you've read it too, so it's a very interesting book of what, how, we won't mention his name, but Rupert Murdoch. Really, it was responsible for electing Thatcher, Blair, Major, and Brown. I mean, that power is really extraordinary.
If you read that book, and it is, I actually had to stop reading it one night because I was feeling scared. And I'm not actually joking. I mean, I had no idea quite how ruthless these people were to establish their power.
But luckily, he has no influence in America. So, are you going to Australia?
I go back to England and do 3 more weeks of publicity of various kinds, and then my lovely brand new wife, Jenny, and I are going off to the sun for 6 weeks to try and get sort of relaxed like you look.
Needs makeup.
You're just looking extremely healthy. And this is because after he'd done the O2 show, and I have to tell you, the only reason the O2 show was so good is that this guy agreed to take it over.
But it was a fun gig.
Oh,
I mean, it was a fun job to be given. I mean, they were all busy. They all had gigs. I didn't have anything.
he's got so much money for a Spamalot, he doesn't.
I spent a year on it, actually, because it was quite an interesting thing. How will the last Python show be?
Yeah.
And so I wrote some things down. I went to everybody and I said, what would you like to play last time out? What do you want to do? What sketches?
And I said, help, which I
You did help. And everybody had certain interesting ideas, so I sort of went and wove them together, because now there's only 5 of us. You've got to get up to 3 people, then you're going to have 2 people come in. And so I was trying to get all this going, and I suddenly went, you know what, we'll make it a musical. And we just put on stage 20 boys and girls singing and dancing filthy Python songs.
Filthy idols.
Filthy idols. Some non-filthy Palin Jones songs. And it gave us a chance to change. It put energy on the stage. And it was completely unexpected, I think. The audience didn't really expect that from Python.
No, and it was a brilliant idea, and it was so lucky that you were the one that was available, because after Spamalot you knew about musical theatre, knew much more than any of us did. And you were therefore able to bring in Arlene Phillips, who choreographed stuff for us in the movies.
Right.
And these extraordinary, very creative dance numbers, some of them are deliciously silly, like Spam Lake. And it helped to fill this huge auditorium of 16,000 people.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
It's like the Staples Centre. It's a very big space to fill. It was fun, though. No.
So what are we going to talk about at this time? What time do we start?
Well, I think we time to have some questions.
Well, let's read one more sketch at the end.
All right.